Hi guys, welcome back. Before we go on to the next phase, I just want to take a little bit of time with you to run over just a few more things related to the previous video. I've just done a little bit of tidying up in tost import new customers.php. Primarily, I've done two things. I've cleaned up the notices, the comments, which were, some of them were no longer relevant and they were just cluttering up the page. And that makes it a little bit more difficult for anybody else who is picking up the code in, not only you. The other thing that I've done is I have added an index page for Toast for the back-end management of the store, which I'm going to go on to show you in a moment. One of the things that I needed to do for that was to add some CSS to the Toast new import new customers.php, because we're outputting some echoes to give us the status of any data imports that are taking place for new customers. So I wanted to stylize those. So I'm now gonna go to the new index page. Here we go. Really simple. So we've just got a Toast header, and then we've got a link here to import new customers. One of the things that I have done for the output that we'll see on screen, giving us the status of the data input, rather than going to its own page, I've actually just created an iframe so we can see it directly beneath this menu. I'm just going to very quickly check that I have cleared the database. Yes, I have, because now I'm going to import the new customers again, but this time, in order to better demonstrate to you how important the elegance actually is, I've actually increased that sample file to over 30,000 records, and I just want you to see the difference. When we were just importing, a handful, 4 or 5 records, it was taking under 1 second to do the whole thing. So that would be 1 second to clean, sanitize, and reformat the CSV spreadsheet, and then import that into the database. Now we've got over 30,000, so let's see what difference that actually makes. So I'm just going to click here on import new customers, and let's just wait and see how long this whole process now takes. Okay, so it's read the CSV file, it's cleansed it, it's sanitized, it's reformatted the whole thing, and it's now starting the MySQL insert. Okay, so the first 5,000 records have been inserted. So the way I've set this up is it will tell us every time in increments of 5,000 the data's been successfully inserted into MySQL. 10,000, we're now up to 10,000 records. $15,000. $20,000. $25,000. So now we're doing the last 5,000 or so. I think it's slightly more than 5,000 left to go. It's over 30,000 records. There you go. Okay, so it's done it. So there were 30,721 records in the new CSV file. The total records inserted are 30,718. The reason for that discrepancy is one of those records that has not been inserted was the header, and the other two that weren't were records that I had deliberately put incorrect account numbers. So instead of doing the mandatory 8-digit account number, I'd actually put less than that, about sort of a 5 and a 6 length account numbers, and I just wanted to test that filtering process was still working and that it wouldn't write those to the database. So that was correct. So 30,718 records took 105 seconds to insert into the database, and that also includes the cleansing, sanitizing and reformatting time. So obviously that's a big jump from the 1 second that we did for just the I think it was five sample records we did earlier. So that's why elegance is really important, because the less elegant, the less clean, the less efficient your coding is, the longer it's going to actually take to process large data sets. Okay, the last thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go back into the database just so you can see they've been inserted. So let's browse. There you go. And up here you can see 30,718 in total. I don't need these now to move forward. I'm going to go back to that small data set for the purposes of this exercise. So I'm just going to very quickly delete all of these. There you go. And I'm going to come back here, task management. I'm going to just clear this down. There you go. Okay, so now let's move on to the next section. Okay, so welcome to video 2, which is all about propensity. Okay, so by propensity, I'm talking about what is the customer's inclination to spend based on their spending patterns. So those patterns, they'd include values such as ATV, the average transaction value, and their frequency, which when combined with their sales history, it can help us personalize the retail e-zine to both maximize sales opportunities and create some aspirational content too, which will encourage them to spend even higher. So the next part, I'm just going to take us in to show some changes I've made to the database. Okay. Here we are. So in order to actually create what ultimately is a propensity index that we can use for the e-zine, there's some more information that we need for those customers. So we need, the first thing that we're going to need to know is their sales history. So an entity, a table that I've set up here is the master ledger. Now this contains all of the information that we have for sales to date. So I'm just going to quickly take you through this. We have a unique key here, primary key order number. We have the customer account number. We've got the category. So the category here is, you know, these ones here. We've got men's fashion, men's sportswear, men's footwear, boys fashion, and so forth. We've got a unique SKU for each item that we're offering for sale, or in this case that we've sold. We've got the SKU description. So here, this guy has bought some Levi men's 501 original fit. SKU subcategory is the jeans. Skew Bending here, which we've got a 4. I'm going to come on to that a little bit later. That's actually connected to the propensity index that we're going to be using. The supplier field, so we've got Levi. There you go. Levi, Adidas, Puma, Vans, name it, Tom Taylor, and so on. We've also got Skew brand. Now this is something very specific that we can also use to further personalize content and further try to maximize sales. Maybe create some upsell as well as some cross-sell. And in this case here, this is a very particular branding. So for example, here I've got Arsenal FC. So this guy has bought an Arsenal home shirt. I've log that down here as Arsenal FC because we could then try and cross-sell or even upsell with some other Arsenal product. Here we've got size, color, the volume that they've bought, the value of the sale, here, the transaction date, and I've also added here an epoch field which contains the Unix timestamp. I tend to put a Unix timestamp in most of the tables that I create. Quite often in the past I found that I've sort of created a table which works really, really well for the original purpose, but then you think, oh, but I could also do a sort of A, B, C, and D as well, and then you come back and you see, oh no, I can't do those because I don't have a timestamp. It's a really useful field to always have, so I would always encourage people to put an epoch or a Unix timestamp field in there, as well as a transaction date, because the epoch field or the date in a Unix format is much easier to work with in PHP than using a transaction date, where quite often you have to convert it back to a timestamp anyway. So that is the master ledger. So we're going to be using that sales history to create that propensity index. Obviously, the other part of this is that we also need to know what our full portfolio range is. We need to know what products we're going to be able to sell, what we're going to be able to advertise and push to those customers in that retail e-zine. So for overall, what the store is selling is it's all fashion based, and we have the following categories. So we have men's fashions, men's footwear, we've got men's sportswear, we've got men's accessories. We've got the same 4 categories for women, we've got the same 4 categories for boys, and then for girls, and then I've also got a junior category. So this is where you might get a unisex children's clothing, which you quite often see in sportswear. You know, sort of branded sportswear, again, like sort of Arsenal stuff. So for the purposes of the exercise, I've set up entities for and only for each of those categories that I'm going to use as an example for how we can personalize an e-zine. So we've got boys fashions, junior sportswear, we've got men's accessories, men's fashion, men's footwear, men's sportswear, women's fashions, and women's sportswear. I'm just going to go into one of these and actually show you what fields we've got in here and what the content is. So let's go into men's footwear. There you go. Okay, so here, so my first field is season. These are for all seasons, but obviously when you are personalizing content and you could be coming towards an end of a season and you might be about to go into spring summer, it's really important to have that season in here for these clothings, because that's something key to how you'll actually come to select that merchandise. So let's take this first row. So what have we got? We've got men's footwear. We've got a unique SKU number. So every item in the store has a unique SKU number. SKU description. So this is Grenson Dillon Brogues. Subcategory. The SKU subcategory is men's shoe. Again, we've got the SKU banding, which I'm going to come on to later. Supplier. The SKU supplier is Grenson. There's no specific SKU brand on this. Sizes, so I know we've got them here at size 11. Color black, we've got 9 of those in stock, and the value is £190. So these are quite a high spend item. So I've got samples of all sorts of various lines of product from the portfolio in all of these various entities that we've got down here, and these are what we're now going to use when we do eventually come to do that e-zine, that personalized e-zine. So now let's go on and talk more about a propensity index. Okay, so I've set up, or I've started propensity.php. And there's a couple of things here you will notice immediately from the first video. So here on line 4, I have disabled the error reporting for notices. And down here on line 6, I've initiated microtime. Again, obviously, I'm going to carry on timing all of the PHP scripts that I do. Here we have setting up the login credentials for the TOS database, again, it's using, you'll see this include, pointing to CSE_DB_connect.php. That's exactly the same thing that we did in the first video. And now what I'm going to go on and do is start working on how we create a propensity index. So first of all, let me just do a couple of comments. Okay, so this PHP code is to establish the aspirational, actually no, let's call it the propensity index and aspiration measurement. Okay, fine. So what is the first thing that we need to do? So the first thing that I want to do is I want to pull out all of the sales from the master ledger that I just showed you, the entity, the table, master ledger. Sales really from the last 3 months or from the last 90 days. I don't want to go further than 90 days. I'm sure that, you know, obviously, you know, a store which has been operating potentially for several years will have a lot of historical sales data that is no longer relevant, that is too old. It might well be the case that you might want to revisit this, and maybe I will revisit this, because we might want to start talking about dormancy, account dormancy, and potentially account reactivation. So that is something that I might come back to, but purely for the exercise of a standard personalized retail sales easing, we're going to go back 3 months of sales in the ledger. So let me just do some coding which is going to actually do that for me. Okay, so here I've set up the MySQL query to select distinct account number from the master ledger, which is the entity we were looking at, which had all of the sales ledgers in, or sorry, all of the previous sales in, where epoch is greater than time, so time being now, minus 7,776,000 seconds. That's essentially 90 days back. So those are the ones that we actually want to use. Now I'm just going to create the loop, which is going to loop through all of these records that we've selected for the next part of the exercise. Okay, so I'm just going to make a comment. So we're going to use a loop to store the, and I'm going to call them indexable accounts within an array. So indexable being that, you know, they're valid and they're relevant to create a propensity index for. So first of all, I'm going to say I equals 0, and now I'm going to put in the loop. So we're going to have, sorry, while. Okay, so while row equals result, so result is from the query that we did earlier. Yep. And now I'm going to use fetch assoc, which is fetch associative array. Okay, just put in a curly bracket. And now we're going to say indexable. So I'm setting up an indexable array. So that's indexable $i. There you go. Equals row. And then the field we took was account number in the query. Okay, that's good. I'm going to increment I by 1 and close curly bracket. Sorry, you've done that. Okay, there you go. So what this now does is it is looping through all of the account numbers that we took from this query up here, and it's storing them into an array variable, indexable. And then we're going to use that for the next part. Okay. So I just want to talk about skew bending. Let me just go back to the database. This is something I mentioned earlier on. So if I go into a sales ledger, where is it? Here we go. Over here we have the skew bending field, and it's a numeric field. And I just want to talk about what that actually is. So every item has a skew bending based upon the value of the item, and this is a real key component to the propensity index. So let me just go back in here to Eclipse, and I just want to talk about what this actually equates to. So we're talking about the skew bending weighting. So for men and women, skew banding 1, which is the top tier of the product portfolio, are for items with a retail value of £140 or up. There's no upper limit, yeah? And that's here. There. Yep. Number 2 are for men and women, for adult items worth between £100 and £139.99. Number 3 is between £60 and £99.99. Number 4 is for £30. Let me just a dollar. There you go. £30 and £59.99. Number 5 is £8 and £29.99, and number 6 is 1 penny to £7.99. Children, because obviously children's clothes have a much cheaper price range, are slightly different, so they've got their own skew banding. So their top tier at number 1 is for items £70 or over, again no upper limit. Number 2 is £40 to £69.99. Number 3 is £20 to £39.99. Number 4 is £10 to £19.99. Number 5, £3 to £9.99, and number 6 is 1 penny to £2.99. So this is a really, really important value, because this shows us, in terms of what their spending pattern is, this shows us A, what they're currently on, and therefore what we potentially could be cross-selling to them in terms of value. And it also shows us what is the tier above, which gives us an aspirational measurement that we can work on as well for personalization of their email. So if you've been buying stuff primarily whatever in band 3, 60 to 99.99 pounds, aspirationally we could be talking to you about products at the band above. So we're talking about band 2 between £100 and £139.99. Can we upsell you at all? So these bandings are really, really important. When we come to the top tier, when we come to tier 1, for which there is no upper limit, I mean, obviously in aspirational terms we can no longer start talking about more expensive products. You are at the upper range of my product portfolio, but potentially there are some other things that we can then start looking in terms of how we have that deep personal relationship. But that's something that we will come on to at a much later sort of stage of the exercise. So these are the skew bandings that we have, which are going to be very, very important for creating that index key, the propensity index. Now what I'm going to do, we know all of the account numbers of the customers that we're going to be sending an e-zine to. the ones that go back 90 days, transactions no longer than 90 days historically. So now what we're going to do is we're going to pull up a lot more of their spending history, all of their spending history for the last 90 days. Okay, so now this all starts to get a bit more complicated. We're actually going to start dealing with nested loops in order to actually extract that information and start to transform it in a way that we can use within that propensity index. So the first thing that we do here, we start off our loop. We know what indexable is. $indexable here, that's the array that we established, the variable array that contains all of the account numbers that we are going to include in the ezine. So we're going to actually loop through all of these where I is less than count of indexable. So that will take us all the way through all of those accounts that we previously selected. Now what we're going to do, we're going to select from the master ledger where we've got all of the sales history, we're going to select the following fields. So we want order number, account number, category, skew bending, skew description, value, where the account number equals indexable $I. Yeah, so it's going to go through each account number within that indexable array. And the other condition is where epoch, again, I keep putting in too many sevens, there you go, where epoch is greater than time minus 7,776,000 seconds, 90 days. Okay, so now we've got the nested loop here. There we go. One of the things you'll notice I'm doing in this, I'm echoing a lot more output to the screen as this script is running. That's just so that I can make sure this is actually working as intended, because it is a lot more complicated probably than any other part of the exercise we've done so far. So here, okay, we're going to take the query that we've just executed, and here we're going to put it into, again, we've got another fetch assoc, so that's another associative array. So we're going to go through all of those records we've pulled through in this data set that we just went through. So we're just saying that, you know, here you go, while row equals result fetch assoc, and this is where we're actually going to start using that data. So okay, so it's important to remember for this stage that the nested loop that we're currently going through, what that is doing, that is looping through every sale within the last 90 days for a single account. Yeah. So let's just go through and I'll try and explain as best I can how we're actually going to get to this propensity index. So the first thing we've got here is we're taking the skew bending for each sale and we're actually adding them together. So for example, if you've done 4 sales, and let's say you've done, you know, one of those sales at band-in 2 and the rest of those sales of the, you know, the 3 remaining sales at band-in 3, what this is going to do as we loop through this nested or as we go through the nested loop, it's going to add all of those together to give us the band-in array $I. Similarly, as it goes through all of your 4 sales, it's adding them up for your frequency, so you will end up with a frequency of 4 if you've made 4 sales. And it's also adding up your values. So for every value of each of those 4 sales, it's adding it up to give us total value $I. So again, that's a total value array. So we will know for your account number what is your total band-in, which we've added together, what is your frequency, and what is the total value of your spend across all of your sales within the last 90 days. Yep. Okay, so let me highlight this for you. This is one instance, and this, you know what, this relates to all of the sort of if statements for all of the categories. So if row category equals men's fashions, so this is your sales transaction record that we're looking at the moment, then men's fashions $I, which relates to your account number, increments by 1. And that's how we're going to count how many times you purchased men's fashions during the last 90 days. This bit here underneath that, sorry, let's just highlight just this. This deals with the skew banding, so this is going to allow us to record the lowest skew banding that you have, which of course equates actually to the highest value, as in skew band number 1 is equates to the top tier, the highest spend. So if your skew banding is less than men's fashion band here, men's fashion band being the last skew banding re-recorded for your sales over that 90-day period, or men's fashion band is empty, because this could be the first time that we've looked at one of your sales record within this loop, in which case men's fashion band $I equals row skew banding. So once we've been through the loop, once we've been through all of the transactions which are men's fashions, we will end up with men's fashion band equaling your lowest banding, your highest spend, essentially. And we go through that same process. As you can see here, you are exactly the same for men's sportswear, for men's footwear, for men's accessories. The only thing that we're changing here is obviously instead of men's fashions, look, we've got men's accessories, and we've got men's accessories band instead of men's fashions band. Okay, so by the time we've been through the nested loop, which has gone through every sales transaction over the last 90 days for your particular account number. By the time we've gone through that, and by the time in each of those loops we've been through every single category, going from men's fashions right through children, right through junior, right through women's categories, we will know every category you've purchased in. We will have recorded the amount of times that, the number of times that you've purchased within those categories, and we will know for each of those categories, we will know what is the lowest skew banding that you purchased. So essentially, what is the highest value that you've paid by skew banding. So that is all. That's probably the biggest chunk of information that we're going to have in the propensity index. Okay, so now I think I'm just going to scroll down through this. These are all echo statements. This is just output so that I can see that it's doing what the script intended. But let's come down, because now I want to talk about some of the other values that we have in the index. We have, in addition to what we just went through for the categories and the skew bandings, we have aspiration. We have a field for aspiration, or we have a value for aspiration. We have a value for ATV, and we have a value for frequency. One of the things I'm going to say now is that when we come to do the personalized easing, we might not use all of these values, but I'm future-proofing the index as much as I possibly can for when we actually go on to talking about a personal relationship rather than a personalized easing. And in fact, as I go on further in the exercise, the index that we're currently creating will likely change, will likely evolve a little bit more. Maybe we'll add more to it. But let's talk about how we actually get to the aspiration value for the index. Okay, so how do we get the aspiration value for the index? It's very simple. That's all we're going to do. Here it is. Let me just highlight this. So aspiration equates to the floor banding divided by your frequency -1, because -1 is going to take it down, i.e. if you have been, or if your lowest banding or your highest spend is at banding 3 for your 90-day transactions, then -1 is going to then take it all the way down to 2. So that would be your aspiration. So that's the next step up for what we will try to upsell to you. ATV, average transaction value, so that is your total value divided by frequency. That gives you your ATV. Your frequency, we already know what your frequency is, because as we were looping through all of your transactions, we were counting, we were adding that up. So we know what your frequency is. So we have your aspiration, we have your ATV, we have your frequency, and we have then all of those instances of how many spends you did within each category and what was the best skew banding that you did for each of those transactions. So what we're going to do, we're going to take all of that information and we're going to put it all together into one key, one piece of one long string of information called prop key, and that is what we're going to actually save to a new entity there. And I'm just going to show you here, if we come down here, look, so prop key $I, so obviously prop key is an array, and $I is going to be you with your account number. That equates to, it's the same position within the array as your account number is, so that equals aspiration, your ATV, your frequency, yeah, and then it comes in to give you your men's fashion band. That could be 0 if you didn't buy any men's fashion. You know, both of these would be zeros, but they will still exist as zeros within the index. Footwear, sportswear, accessories, women's fashions, all the way through. So you will end up with a very, very long series of numeric characters, which is actually going to be your propensity index. Okay, so I have actually run propensity.php, and what it has actually done is it's inserted into a new tossed entity. So we're talking about a new table, master prop, for which I'm going to take you through. Now in the sample master ledger that we set up, there's only 2 account holders who have been making transactions, because I don't need more than those 2 in order to demonstrate how you do a personalized retail e-zine. So let's just go through these fields and I'll talk you through them. So the first one is the account number. So here we are, we've got those 2 account holders. Now we've got aspiration. So for this account here, aspiration of 0. Now 0 doesn't actually exist as a skew banding, but what that means is that this particular account number has been purchasing from the top tier. So the sales ledger purchases are all at skew banding 1. Hence that's what is coming out as 0. So in this instance, for this particular account number, 0 is equal to 1. It's equal to a top tier spend. This account holder here has got an aspiration value of 2. That means that that account holder has been purchasing, or the best skew banding they've actually purchased with in the last 90 days is 3. So we've knocked them up to 2 for aspirational purposes to try and do some upsells. Here are the average transactions for all of their total spends within the last 90 days, £139 and £67. Here is my epoch field. As I said, I usually do a Unix timestamp in all of the tables. Here is frequency. So this person here has shopped twice. This person here has shopped 10 times within the last 90 days. And this is how we see the whole of what is essentially the propensity index here in this propensity field. Let me just edit it so that you can see and I can explain how this works. So here you go. So it's all of these values here that make up the index, and this is the key field. This is the key piece of information that we're going to use to customize the ezine. So this first 0 here is aspiration. So it's 0 because this is the account holder that was actually spending or purchasing everything with a skew banding of 1. It might actually be better if I bring up the other account holder. Hold on. Here we go. There we go. Okay. So aspiration is 2, as we just saw. There you go. Aspiration of 2. Then we've got the ATV in here at 67. Then we've got the frequency of 10 transactions. Now the rest of them are built up on category spend and category skew banding, or best category skew banding. So the first 2 figures relate to men's fashions here. So here we can see that there were there were 3 transactions in men's fashions, and 3 was the best skew banding, or the skew banding with the highest value, which was a 3. Hence, that's why the aspiration is at 2. It's knocked him onto a higher spend. If we look at the next one, this here is footwear, these 2. Men's footwear. So there's been 1 purchase in men's footwear. Category, the skew banding 4. So it was in skew banding 4 price range. These 2 here are for men's sportswear. These 2 here are for men's accessories. There were no transactions in men's accessories. The following 2 are women's fashions. So there was 1 purchase in women's fashions, skew banding of 3. And then it carries on. So then you get, there you go, there's the women's footwear, there were no transactions. There's women's, sportswear, no transactions. Right through the children's. But there was 1, which is here, boys' fashions, where there were 2 transactions, and the best of the skew banding was 3. And then there was no other transactions. So there was no transactions for girls, and there were no transactions for juniors. So they are all registering as 0s. So this is a propensity index that we're going to use for this account holder when we come to generate content, personalized content for the retail ezine. I think this has probably been the most complex that we've talked about so far in how we generate this key. You might need to sort of look at it again. I don't know. It is quite complex with nested loops. There's lots of variables and so forth. But I hope you've got some kind of understanding of it. The important bit is here that we've now got a key that we can use to generate content. And the great thing about having a propensity index in a single field is that when we come to actually dynamically generate content for an email, we don't have to access lots of tables, look for lots of sales. It's already done for us. It's done within this field here. This is the kind of process, propensity.php, that's the kind of thing that you would maybe put on a cron tab or schedule to run overnight at a given time every night, maybe 11 p.m. or something. It would go through your entire customer base, updating these keys. So you've always got a fresh, up-to-date key when you actually come to do marketing activity. Okay, I think that's it for this video. So the next video, we're actually going to start to put together the actual ezine. And that means, we're also going to be maybe looking at Photoshop and I will be creating custom content for product shots, aspirational images, and so forth. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.